We are here to be available to answer questions having to do with the shooting that occurred on South Street. And we have with us ADA Joanne Pescatore. She is the chief of our homicide non-fatal shooting unit. This work and work like it has been her entire career. And the only reason that she was not here this morning at the press conference is that she had to be on South Street itself, where she's working hand in hand with Philadelphia Police Department, ATF, and other law enforcement partners to make sure we gather all the evidence and that we evaluate it correctly and we move on it. There are some developments. I'm going to ask ADA Pescatore to come forward, provide the information that she is able to provide, and there is some. She will be holding back the information she should not provide, and there is some, although it will become, a lot of that will be clarified within the next couple of days. And after she's concluded explaining to you some of this information, you should feel free to ask her questions about the investigation. I will obviously also be available. Joanne?
Thank you, DA Krasner. Good afternoon. The District Attorney's Office has approved warrants for 2 individuals with regard to the incident that took place on South Street this Saturday night. One of those individuals is currently in custody. The other individual is not. I will only give you the name of the individual who is currently in custody. The other I will not. The individual who is currently in custody, his name is Quran, Quran, Garner, Garner. He's charged with multiple offenses, including aggravated assault, 2 counts, and aggravated assault on law enforcement officers, 2 counts as well. There is another individual who an arrest warrant has been issued for. I will not reveal his name at this particular time. I was on South Street today, and it is approximately a 2-block scene. It starts at one end of South Street and works its way down to South and American Street. I was with the homicide detectives who have worked tirelessly since Saturday night, since this job came in, along with ATF and other law enforcement agencies trying to figure out what exactly happened here. There is numerous video, as you can imagine. There are numerous cameras on that 2-block radius. Various videos have been pulled. There are no murder charges at this particular time. That investigation is still ongoing. When I tell you they are culling video and going through it as we speak, there is still video coming in. The neighborhood has been quite cooperative. When we were out there, people were coming up to give us information and to tell us whatever they knew. And I'm going to ask if anyone has any information, please call the homicide unit, 215-686-3334. The assigned detective is Matthew Farley. You can talk to him or anybody else that is working, and they will take your information.
What do you believe Garner did?
Quran Garner is on video shooting back toward the area where the initial confrontation takes place between Gregory Jackson and Micah Towns, who is a victim in this particular case. Quran Jackson, it's our belief, was a friend or was with Micah Towns when this initial altercation starts. After the initial altercation, guns are drawn by Gregory Jackson and Micah Towns. Gregory Jackson shoots at Micah Towns first. Micah Towns returns fire, shooting and killing Gregory Jackson. As a result of that, Quran Garner then begins to fire down the street toward South Street, toward where the initial confrontation took place. It is at that point that Philadelphia police begin to shoot after Quran Garner pulls a gun, has the gun out and looks in their direction. They shoot at him, shooting his hand. He's currently at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital undergoing surgery for a result of injuries sustained when the police shot back at him.
He's the dude with the hat. Garner's the one wearing the hat in that video. Has he got a hat on, smallish? And how old?
How old? I don't have his age. I don't know that he has a hat on. The video I saw, he's wearing what I would describe as a balaclava. It covers his entire head. One could possibly wear it as a COVID mask and a gray hoodie.
What other
What do you know about the gun? The gun that he used? What can you tell us about the gun he used?
The gun that he used was left at the scene. It is a ghost gun, and it did have an extended magazine.
The other charges and the other warrant, what are those charges?
The other charges are going to be attempted murder, aggravated assault, simple assault, recklessly endangering another person, conspiracy, violation of the Uniforms Firearms Act, possession of an instrument of crime, tampering with evidence, and obstruction of justice.
So may I just back up for the sake of clarity for everyone here? Now, ADA Pescator, if you're not comfortable answering this, just tell me, because you are the keeper of the investigation. But you mentioned 3 different names: Gregory Jackson, Micah Towns, and also Krasner.
Yes.
Can you explain for the journalists who are gathered here what role each of these people played in the initial encounter, if any, and what is their condition now?
Okay, certainly, D.A. Krasner. So Micah Towns is walking down South Street. You can't tell if he's with Karan Gardner at that time. They're in close proximity to each other. At some point, he passes by on the same side of the street, Gregory Jackson, and 2 other men, one of them being the unnamed person who the arrest warrant is for. As he's passing by, words are exchanged. As words are exchanged, then Gregory Jackson takes a swing at Micah Towns, striking him in the face. It's at that point that the other male, who we have an arrest warrant for, begins in the melee at that point. Micah Towns is then thrown against a window while they are beating on him. At some point, you see Gregory Jackson, who did have a permit to carry, pull out a gun, and he has the gun at his side. Micah Towns is in the middle of South Street. At that point, Gregory Jackson begins to fire at Micah Towns, Micah Towns, who also has a permit to carry, pulls out his gun and shoots back at Gregory Jackson, ultimately killing him. It's at that
Ultimately killing whom?
Gregory Jackson. It's at that point that the unnamed person, who there's an arrest warrant for, picks up the gun that Gregory Jackson had and gives it to another male in a blue hoodie, who then leaves the scene. That unnamed male still stays at the scene, putting pressure on the wound of Gregory Jackson, and gives his name to police and where he lives and all his information. It's at that point that Karan Gardner then begins firing down South Street in the location where this melee took place. And then after he stops shooting, the police, when he turns his gun toward them, fire at him. And then you see Karan Gardner run down American Street saying out loud, "He shot my hand off, he shot my hand off." Karan Gardner then makes his way to 4th and Bainbridge, where there are police positioned there. There had been an earlier shooting at 4th and Bainbridge approximately an hour before that. Police were at that location for that shooting. Karan Gardner approaches the police and tells them, "I got shot during this incident." They put him in a patrol car and take him to Thomas Jefferson University Hospital, where he is at this time. Micah Towns is in serious condition at this time. He is at Penn Presbyterian Hospital, and that's why the charges with regard to him as a victim are attempted murder.
Do you believe Mr. Garner was shooting at the direction of Mr. Jackson in order to defend Mr. Towns?
That is the belief, except that Mr. Jackson was already down, and that particular incident was clearly over probably 20 to 30 seconds when Karan Gardner then begins to fire down that street.
I just want to clarify, because it was a little confusing. You're talking about Micah Towns, and you're talking about the attempted murder charges, but we're not talking about Micah Towns being charged.
No, Micah Towns is not being charged in this case. He's not.
That's a charge.
He's the victim on the person that I'm not giving you the name of.
Towns wearing black? You see him in the video
He
wearing
is.
black?
He is. He has a black T-shirt on, and you see it at some point come over his head, and he makes his way into the middle of the street. He's actually laying in the middle of the street when he's shooting back at Gregory Jackson.
So the guy who gave his name to police, who's helping Gregory Jackson, takes Jackson's gun, doesn't tell police, "I have his gun," and now you want to find him your gun.
Doesn't tell police anything, just that I'm here, that's my friend, I was giving aid, gives his name, and that's it. But on video, you can clearly see him pick up Gregory Jackson's gun and hand it to another male who leaves the scene.
And earlier today, the DA said that there were 4 guns, maybe more. Yesterday, we heard that 2 guns were recovered. Do you have any other guns from this recovered?
No, we don't have any other guns recovered. I can tell you that there were 3 of the guns at least are 9mm, and there is a .40 caliber gun that was out there that was also fired.
So 4 guns is the number.
4 guns at least.
At least. Do you know what they were beefing about? What's the original problem here?
I do not know. All I can tell you was apparently Micah Towns was a boxer, and this unnamed person with the arrest warrant was also a boxer. I don't know if they had some sort of relationship prior to that. You just see them pass each other on the sidewalk, words are exchanged, and then everything breaks out from there.
Is Jackson not a boxer? Isn't Greg Jackson a boxer?
I don't know. I don't know if he is or not.
Shortly after all of this, then there's a homicide in the 500 block of South Broad. At this point, any connection to...
No, we were talking about that, and we don't think that it's related. Of course, they will check the ballistics to see if there's anything else they can gather from that.
Understanding from police that they are trying to then the other wounded in this crowd, how those wounds did come about. Any indication at this point from your office, ballistics-wise, how...
No, it's kind of hard to tell right now. There were so many people. If you see the video, there's just so much going on, and people are trying to render aid, and victims are being moved around. So it's the detectives are over there now watching numerous body cam videos from the location, trying to get cell phone videos, trying to piece it all together, who was where when they actually got shot. So that's where we're at right now.
Do we have any video evidence at this time of another shooter, or do we just have the at least three guns?
We do have evidence of another shooter. There was somebody shooting a .40 caliber gun.
Where was that shooter located?
I can't tell you that at this point. We're still getting video to try and clarify that better.
Are you able to determine which victims were injured by which gun?
No, that's what we're trying to do right now.
We don't know if anybody was injured by the .40 caliber.
Yeah, we don't. We're having the body bullets examined as we speak by ballistics to see if there's any match to tell, because we had 3 other 9mm out there. So you have to compare those to each other, and then you have to, if the body bullet's a .40, then we know who our shooter of that person was.
But 2 of the people with the 9s had licenses to carry.
That's correct.
One maybe not, but we don't know. You don't know that. And the 4.
Karan Gardner did not have a license to carry. That's why he was charged with 6106 and 6108.
So basically, you have 2 guys, some sort of beef, we don't know what it is, and it results in 11 people being injured and 3 people being dead.
Yes, and I don't know if other things were happening that have nothing to do with, literally the scene is 2 blocks long, and it literally is 4 different scenes. And if you walk a couple, 50 or 60 feet, there's another scene, and then there's another scene and another scene. So whether it had to do with each other or not, I can't tell you.
And everybody with the beef apparently is holding a gun.
Yes.
Have you identified from ballistics any of whose bullets shot which bystanders at this point?
No. No.
Question for DA Fred. You interviewed the mayor yesterday, and he said something to the effect of the attorney's office and the attorney general's office can do something about guys that have 3, 4, 5 different arrests, I'm quoting, for carrying an illegal firearm, and they're still on the street. That's got to get addressed. Can you respond to that?
Well, I would agree with him that the AG's office and the DA's office should prosecute people who have criminal records and are susceptible to a charge of 6105, which is felon in possession of a firearm. I think that's correct. Obviously, you've already noted that in this particular case, we don't know everybody who was involved yet. We do know that 2 of the 3 original participants had a permit to carry and 1 did not.
And Karan Gardner actually had a very troubled past to late teenage years, but was never really held accountable. Do you think instead of just withdrawing charges, there should be some diversion program that kids can be put in when they get in trouble?
I'm not familiar with the details of Karan Garner's record. Once I am familiar, I may be in a position to answer whatever that question was. Are there any other questions?
Do you know if there were any disorderly conduct arrests or code violations arrests beforehand?
I don't have that information. Do you know?
I do not know. I don't know that. I mean, that's not something that my unit would keep track of.
Is there going to be an extra police presence along that area of the city tonight, tomorrow?
I don't know. I can tell you that I'm sure that question can be answered by the commissioner. We know that there was some activity last night that was different in terms of cutting off access to certain parts of South Street. I cannot tell you, although I'm sure there is a good answer, I cannot tell you specifically. Obviously, some of the theory behind that had to do with the weekend. Some of it had to do with the Roots Picnic, which is a very popular event that draws a lot of people to enjoy something that is planned by one of Philly's great bands and a very positive influence in the city. So it may simply have been a certain amount of trying to evaluate the potential for people leaving a different event to end up on South Street and what social media may have indicated was possible. But I would refer those questions to the police commissioner and to the city.
From now on Saturday nights, I believe there should be a heavier police presence.
I try as much as I can not to pretend I'm the police commissioner, and I appreciate it when they return that favor. So I would respectfully refer you to the city and also to the police commissioner.
So are there any policy prescriptions you're considering for repeat offenders with illegal firearms being released? Is there anything policy-wise that can be done in your office?
I'm happy to answer your question, although I'm a little confused because I think we just discussed two people who have a permit to carry, which means
I
that
mean in general, the wide scope of people with illegal guns.
we have always treated 6105, which is people who have a prior felony. We have always treated those cases as very serious cases that we prosecute. They're not even eligible for diversion. When you look at 6106 and 6108, now those are charges that can apply to people who have no criminal record whatsoever, but did not get the paperwork in order to have a permit to carry. And for some of them, we have to keep a close eye on them because they are capable of doing great violence. And for others, you're dealing with people who are law-abiding people who arm themselves without getting the paperwork because they're scared and because they're fearful. We believe in individual justice. We will continue to pursue individual justice in exactly the same way. We looked at what happened to Micah and said that's self-defense. Even though he fired a gun and killed someone, we did individual justice, and we do individual justice as well when it comes to cases of gun possession.
I want to be clear, we have 11 injuries, 3 fatalities. There's a family member who's believing that their relative is a 4th injury or 4th fatality in this. But we're at 3 fatalities that you know of.
As of now, yes.
Mr. Attorney, do you have any updates on the shooting, the first shooting of the night, shortly after 11 p.m. on 4th and Baker? Do you have any suspects?
I would have to defer to ADA Pescator for that. Do you have any info?
No, there's no other information except, there's video from that scene as well, and there are police at that particular scene, which then leads to this particular scene.
And at this point, you have no suspicion that the two are related?
No.
Okay. Do you have any concern about the way the two shootings were handled side by side?
I have no reason to think that these investigations are being mishandled in any way. I can tell you that I know that police have been on the street working more or less continuously, as they often do with a homicide investigation. We have had excellent collaboration and cooperation with ATF and other law enforcement partners. ADA Pescator isn't getting as much sleep as she could use, which I appreciate. In fact, she was out there on the street herself. I was out there on the street myself the morning after it occurred. This is a very high priority for a lot of people in the city. Some of them are in government, some of them are not. These business owners have stepped up remarkably to make available video and to assist in this process. Witnesses have come from everywhere. There are people in the community who stepped up to try to render aid when people who were bleeding came into their establishments or were running down their streets. We're all stepping up, those in government and those who are not in government, to deal with a situation that is deeply, truly tragic.
Do you have any more video or photos that are going to be released in terms of having the public help you identify people or anything like that? I know we've seen some of the video, but should we expect anything else to be coming out?
I think I know the answer, but I think it's better if I don't answer. So we'll have ADA Pescator answer.
Thank you. I know that the mayor is having a press conference, or was having a press conference today, and I just left homicide a short time ago, and the 2 video specialists over there were putting together compilations and still culling video for that. So I'm hopeful that we'll have another person that we can identify as another shooter.
And that'll be made available to the public or to the media?
Once we do that, yes.
You said you don't have a name on Garner or David Murphy?
I do.
I want to make sure we're looking at Garner. It looks to me like he's wearing blue top, right?
Well, it could look blue on your video.
Yeah.
And
You know
telling
what
you
I'm looking at, yeah.
it's a gray jacket with a black front to it.
And that's him next to the
I can't
shooter.
see that far away. No, that's not
Mr.
Karan
Cole,
Gardner.
may I assist?
not-
May I be of assistance?
Is that him?
No, that's not Karan Gardner.
Assistance, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that is not Karan Gardner.
That's not him.
No.
Great.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. It's all about the truth.
Sure.
So may I just say this on the video issue? You know, this is always a very delicate balance. There may come a point where it makes more sense to release a video because that could become a source of additional investigation. There are also times when releasing a video invites people to become fake witnesses or invites them to change their memory, and their memory is actually valid, and what they're doing is modifying it based on something else. So it's this delicate balance between the integrity and the investigation and then being as complete as possible. But, you know, we have great faith that the PPD and that the mayor's office will be sensitive to this, that the PPD is well positioned to make good judgments about what video can be released and at what point it can be released. And of course, we're in that process, so we're happy to advise to the extent that they want.
Are the families being cooperative? I know you mentioned like one of the boxer may have known one of the possible other boxer, things like that. I know it mostly seems like it's all innocent bystanders, but are there any relationship or
Yeah, I can't tell you that. I don't even know if Micah Towns, the one victim, has been able to be interviewed yet. So once that happens, maybe we'll have more information.
Just one last clarifying question maybe on
Yeah.
the timeline. You said, who threw the first punch?
Gregory Jackson.
Gregory Jackson threw the first punch, not his accomplice. Who hasn't been
No,
named.
no.
And do you know how many shots each of them fired at each other?
They fired together, altogether, they fired 17 shots between Jackson and Towns.
Jackson and Tess, do you know how many hit Jackson?
I don't know.
Are there any other questions? Thank you all very much.